This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
So now we have Brendan and Aaron Johnson of the PalaceOfPistons.com with me here for Sundays with Dominic and Vito on a Wednesday, a midweek recording of the podcast and via Google Hangout. Brendan, Aaron, how are you guys doing?
Vito, we're doing well. Good to be with you as always. Of course, we wish we could all be together, in person to record the podcast here, but, we're doing our part with the social distancing, but we're doing okay. We're alive. We're well.
And you're both in the same house, right? At the Johnson household, the Johnson Resort, as I like to call it. I'm at the Delta Resort, by the way, right now speaking.
There you go.
Both. Yeah. So having fun, enjoying ourselves as much as possible, coping with the coronavirus pandemic. And how have you fellows been so far? Being at home, practicing the social distancing. How has that gone for you guys so far? And bringing Aaron now into the fray here. Aaron, for you, how have you dealt with the coronavirus pandemic and all of these social distancing practices?
Well, for me, it's been pretty good because I've been able to connect with a lot of friends online. We're playing a lot of video games, and when you're able to play together, it makes it easier to still be able to talk to your friends and hang out with them. Maybe, you're not able to do it in person, but you're able to do it over the phone. You're able to play games together. And, it's definitely been an adjustment from me having to come home from school and, now back living at home and going to school from home. It's been different. I'm ready to be out of the house again, but I also like it. I like being with my family and having the time that we have together. It's nice.
But you and Brendan right now in the same house as we speak, but not in the same room. You're in your respective rooms in the Johnson household. Is that true?
I demanded that we be separated for this show.
Had to be separated. Is that true, Brendan?
No, what's funny about this is, oh my God, we're getting the fake news here on the podcast. But the thing is, Aaron's always set up downstairs. He's got his little setup. I too had been set up downstairs for a few days. A couple of days ago, decided to move my setup upstairs just due to the temperature in the basement was just freezing cold. So was able to maneuver some things, clean up some workspace, and get myself solidified upstairs in a nice, warmer better environment than the basement. So Aaron's kind of in like Antarctica right now, and he's probably bundled up a little bit. Whereas I'm upstairs and I'm just wearing my basketball shorts and I'm happy. So, it's okay. We're all good.
Well, staying warm, staying relaxed, and comfortable as much as possible, despite these difficult circumstances and times that we're currently dealing with. And no NBA as well, fellas. You guys are two big NBA and Pistons dudes. So talking about that a little bit, the NBA at a standstill. All these professional sports leagues have been suspended for the time being, and there's no word yet. No clear word on when these leagues will be resumed and whether or not they even will play out the remainder of their respective seasons. Same thing with the NBA once again. And looking at that and how these teams left off. And let's start with the hometown Detroit Pistons, your guys' squad and my squad here as well, and maybe a little bit more of your guys' squad. But anyways, difficult times for the Detroit Pistons, to say the least. Currently in the midst of a rebuild. How else would we label the season thus far that has been played out for the Detroit Pistons? And Aaron, let's go to you first with this one.
Well, it's obviously not been the season that the Pistons had been anticipating, and blowing up the squad by trading Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin going down for the season after only being able to play 12 games and not looking like himself and having to go right back on the disabled listed. I know that's an MLB term, but basically that's what it is in the NBA as well. And so him having to go back on the injured reserve, and then you end up buying out Reggie Jackson. That was kind of your quote-unquote big three. The Pistons going in a different direction, and I don't know if there's one word that I could put on this Pistons season, whether it's going to continue or not, but it wasn't the year they expected. But if you're looking for a positive, I think you can look at maybe they found someone that's going to be part of their build moving forward in Christian Wood.
The development of Christian Wood. Now, that, I think, reigns supreme with all of the Pistons headlines, a lot more negative than positive. But the one big positive to take out of this campaign thus far, I think, is what Aaron brought up, Brendan, in the development of Christian Wood. A guy who was unheralded, right? And not a lot of expectations. But now with Andre Drummond gone, traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers at the NBA trade deadline, Wood has been allowed to even, I think, showcase more of his skills and talents. And what do you have to say about Wood and his development up to this point?
Well, let me start with this, Vito. Just imagine if Joe Johnson had been on the roster and not Christian Wood.
Good God.
Imagine that.
Right.
But no, you talk about a guy that at the beginning of the year wasn't starting, and everybody's like, well, why isn't Christian Wood playing? Why is Thon Maker starting over Christian Wood? And of course, this is you kind of filling in that spot of Blake being hurt and whatnot. And in the whole message, and I remember we talked about this on the Palace of Pistons podcast, was, guys, just relax. Thon Maker's going to play his way out. Christian Wood's going to get a chance to get into the starting mix. He's going to get a chance to be the guy, and it's going to pay off, and he's going to be okay. And you've seen over the course of the year, Christian Wood's been able to play the 4 and the 5. He's athletic. He gets up and down the floor. He's grown as a defender immensely. Still has some work to do. There's no doubt about it, but he's become a much better defender, at least relative terms, right? He could score the ball. He could rebound the ball. And he's shown that he could play maybe an undersized 5. He could play the 4-man spot. He could pair up with Sekou. Maybe he can pair up with Blake on the floor next year. It'd be interesting to see if Blake, Sekou, and Christian Wood play together at the same time on the floor next year. And what variety of minutes, I don't know. But just something else to think about. So Christian Wood has shown that he's going to get paid in the offseason. That's the big thing. And whether it's Detroit or it's elsewhere, I think he's going to have some loyalty to Detroit. Part of me hopes that he looks at this season as maybe even some unfinished business in the sense of he didn't get to finish out the way that really he wanted to. I don't know if Christian Wood would have been up for any postseason awards and things like that. But I mean, my goodness, if there's anybody that could have made a case for like most improved player of the year, I think Christian Wood's name could have been thrown into that hat without a doubt. I don't know if anybody's talked about that, but they should have, and they should be, because Christian Woods went from a guy that, the Pelicans just dismissed, and the Pistons go out. I shouldn't say barely makes the roster because maybe he was going to make it all along, but a guy that bounced around, never had a home, bottom of the rotation guy, and he comes out this year and just balls out, plays really, really good basketball, and solidifies himself probably as a starter in this league. So,
and no, you're right. You're right, Brendan. And at the end of the day, that's some good wood, fellas. I got to leave it at that. Come on.
I just want Vito's recording of that one right there. That is a drop.
I love it. No, I had to do that again. I know I've done that before to you, Brendan, actually, too. You probably forgot already. But, we're trying to be funny, mix it in and mix it up here. Because, hey, there's not a lot of positives regarding the Pistons. So you have to have some fun. And I think fun with Wood and talk about how good he has been. But also, you brought up the fact, Brendan, that he's going to be a free agent. Will he re-up with the Pistons on the long term? And what kind of deal could he be seeking and deserving of this offseason coming up? Aaron.
I think Christian Wood has put himself in a position to get paid quite a pretty penny this offseason. And what's only going to make it worse for the Pistons is that there's not a lot of great free agents. This is a pretty weak class coming up. So there's going to be teams that have money, and Wood is going to be a very sought-after player. I think, you look back at the trade deadline when nearly, it was reported that a lot of teams called the Pistons about Wood's availability. Obviously, Detroit turned them all away, but there's going to be teams that have the cap space that, similar to Detroit, that are going to offer Wood a long-term contract, and that's what he's going to be looking for after, bouncing around in the G League and bouncing around from team to team. And obviously, he gets his chance here in Detroit, but he's looking for a home, but he's also going to be looking for which team is going to pay him the most, and that's going to force Detroit's hand, I think, if they want to hold on to this player. And you're talking about a guy that since entering the starting lineup for the Pistons, averaging about 20-10 on 50% shooting from the field and about 41% shooting from the three-point line. So that's a very productive player. And for a center in today's league, he's kind of the prototypical build. Obviously, he needs to get a little bit stronger and clean up his defensive game. But importantly, he can finish at the rim. He can shoot three-pointers, is a rim runner, can block shots. So he has the mold of a center in today's league. There's still room to grow, but this is a guy that's probably going to command around $12 million, maybe even more. And it's going to be interesting to see, depending how really what happens with the rest of this season. Is he going to get a chance to come out, and maybe now teams have had more time to scout him and see how he plays? Will teams kind of read into it a little bit and figure him out to the point where if this season resumes and the Pistons continue playing, that Wood maybe struggles a little bit or isn't as impactful? Or does he come out and continue to dominate, and does that up his value as a free agent? So obviously this is an unheralded situation, and we don't know what the effects of it could have. But, for Christian Wood right now, he's in a great spot to get paid. And, depending on what happens with the rest of the season, he could potentially raise his value even more.
Do you guys think, though, the NBA will resume its campaign at this point with all of the madness and craziness and uncertainty? I mean, so much darn uncertainty. Really, that's the key word to bring up regarding this coronavirus pandemic, in my opinion. So with all of that being taken into account, do you think Commissioner Adam Silver will resume the season at some point? And I don't know, by midsummer at least, guys? What do you think about that, Brendan? First with you on this one.
It's all about what happens in the next month or so. Do I think that the NBA would like to resume their season? Yes. Do I think it's practical? Well, they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to come up with something. And I know that there have been a bunch of things that have gone out there with different playoff suggestions and brackets and tournaments and things. I'll be honest, I'd be surprised if the NBA season resumed. I really would. I think that, especially when you look at a guy like Adam Silver and you look at the NBA, they definitely are a little bit more progressive on issues like this. It would surprise me if they made a move to resume the season, unless if it was very clear that the coronavirus was not a significant threat. I mean, could I see them saying, hey, the virus is not a threat, we're still going to have playoffs with no fans? They could. But I won't lie, I'd be surprised if we saw another NBA game this season. I really would.
Well, and then also there's this factor. Now, the NBA had toyed around with it and considered it already, I know, when all of this, really, the madness started with the coronavirus, and people were still uncertain about the league and continuing on. So I know the NBA had discussed, to sum it all up, still playing and without the fans inside of the arenas. Other leagues also had talked about it. So if the NBA actually went down that route and implemented that, no fans throughout arenas from team to team, would it even be worth it almost to bring back the NBA if that is the case, Aaron?
But I think people are so desperate for sports right now, so desperate for something to, give them to watch, to do, to appreciate. I think, especially from my perspective, I'm dying for basketball to return. I don't care that the Pistons are a terrible team this year. I want to see basketball. I'll watch other teams. I do not care. I think the NBA is absolutely going to try to bring the season back. They're going to be precautious with it. They are definitely ahead of the curve in situations like this. I mean, they were one of the first leagues to suspend play. Some would say that they should have done it even sooner than they did. But I think this is a situation where the NBA is going to try to come back. And if that means that they have to turn away fans and have to play games without fans, they'll do it. And the thing is, the NBA has big TV deals. That's where they get a lot of their revenue. So they're going to draw massive ratings, which they'll definitely lose revenue for their, in-game operations and, obviously losing those fans at the arena, but the ratings will spike. And that could lead to even larger TV deals in a year, in a couple years, whenever the TV deal is up. That's not really the point. I think that there's a draw to the game. There's a draw back to sports right now that people have now had to go a few weeks without live sports. They're craving it. And I think, whichever league is able to get back to action first will certainly see the benefit of people being able to flock to their sport again.
So Rudy Gobert, the star player for the Utah Jazz, tested positive and led to all of this in the NBA season being suspended. So how do we label and look at Rudy Gobert now? A guy that was messing around, remember, in the post-game press conference area where the media swarms to and talks to the players after games, before games as part of media sessions. It was messing around, touching everything, touching all the mics. Then later on, soon after that, actually, guys, as you know already, he ends up testing positive for the coronavirus and becoming the first NBA player, and I think professional sports athlete, to have tested positive for the virus. So with all that being said, how do we view him now? Is he kind of this hero almost? And what's the way of labeling him, and the way in which he caused the NBA season to be suspended, and really the way in which I think he brought more awareness about this virus and its severity as well?
I don't want to applaud him for that, even though, him being tested positive for it ended up leading into the NBA shutting down. And it really gained a lot of national attention because of him and the NBA shutting down. I think that's when people really started, at least some people started to take the coronavirus very seriously. But I don't know if you can classify him as a hero, because I think you look at what he did just in his locker room alone. Donovan Mitchell, the co-star of the Jazz, testing positive. And I know there was a quote from him saying that it took time for him to kind of cool down on Rudy Gobert after, him having done what he did. So, it's kind of a tough situation there. Really, as this whole thing has been a tough situation, but at least if you're trying to take a positive, did kind of bring awareness to the situation. But I think what he did was obviously incredibly dangerous and ill-advised. And I mean, he put his teammates in risk, and he gave it to his teammate, at least one of them. He put the media at risk. He put the staff at risk. He put literally all the fans that he came into contact with at risk. I mean, I know that there was stuff going around the NBA saying to not, be high-fiving fans and this and that. And he had tossed his arm sleeves into the stands when the Jazz were playing the Pistons. And I know two Pistons fans, or a Piston fan, had his arm sleeve or both his arm sleeves, whatever it was, that, had his body on them and could have had the virus on them. So he was not acting in the correct way. And unfortunately, things happened the way they happened, but it did lead to more people seeing the severity of the situation. And I think that kind of escalated the idea of social distancing, staying home, not going out to these big public spaces and interacting and touching all these different people. So I guess when you look at it that way, that is a silver lining. We'll leave it at that.
No, I agree. And you know what? There's a better term for Gobert than a hero. Let's not praise him and applaud him completely because he took it lightly, this virus. When in his defense, so remember, guys, a lot of people took it lightly at that given time when he was messing around with the mics and all that with the media. But he jeopardized the health of his teammates, of the media members, of the fans in those stands in the arenas that he played in, such as Little Caesars Arena. And I think a fan then ended up testing positive. So sure, did he handle it at first in the best manner possible? No. But at the end of the day, by him testing positive, did it lead to more awareness about the severity of this virus? And for people to take COVID-19 more seriously, I think that is the case definitely here, Brendan.
I don't know where Brendan is. This is a bad showing for him.
Bad showing. You know what? I'm never going to forgive Mr. BJ. How about those initials too? And that nickname, BJ. Not the best nickname, but.
Can you guys hear me now?
There we go, Brendan. You are back now. You can defend yourself and give me your thoughts then. Okay, give me your thoughts on Gobert and how do we view him at this point?
Here's the thing. First of all, defend myself on what? What did who said? What did Aaron say? I shouldn't say who said something. What did Aaron say?
Well, what did Aaron say? No, he didn't really bash you too much. He said it's a bad day or off day. Or Aaron, tell him straight up. Tell your brother. What did you say? Own up to it.
This has been a bad showing for you. I mean, multiple times you're going to drop out of the call when we come out and we're trying to, do a good job on Vito's podcast. You're going to come out here and embarrass the family name? Come on.
Listen, man, I'm trying. Trust me. I've muted my mic so I could say some choice words to maybe get it to work. That's what I've been trying to do.
I got to give you a beating?
Listen.
Shoot, Aaron. He deserves it, man.
What's funny, Vito, is Aaron would be out of breath before he'd get all the way up the stairs. That would be the issue. So, if we want to go that route. But anyways, to talk about Gobert, you talk about the awareness that was brought, and I think that you could say awareness. I think that the big thing is it's when people started taking this thing really seriously in the United States, because before this, I think people saw it as, wow, it's really affecting China. That's a shame. Wow, it's starting to affect Italy. That's a shame. I'm not going to travel. I'm going to try to just kind of, I'm definitely not going abroad. Man, I feel bad for those countries. Sending my prayers. But then all of a sudden it starts hitting in the United States. And you're like, oh, okay, well, it's minor. It's going to happen a little bit to people that travel back and forth. But it happens. And then all of a sudden you see somebody, and when you see somebody like, whether it be an actor, an actress, an athlete, somebody of fame, somebody of wealth, somebody of magnitude, it's one of those things that you kind of view them as an untouchable. And when untouchable goes through something like this, you're like, wow, that happened. And when you see an NBA player get the coronavirus and see that, wow, he did that, he exposed all of those people, and you see a person of fame and maybe a higher echelon, and then you see all these, you almost could consider real life people with the media and whatnot, all affected by this, you go, wow, this can affect anybody. The way they locked down the arenas, they checked out all of the players, it just showed how surreal it really is. And I think that the awareness was there, but awareness might not even give it enough credit as to people just really taking it seriously. So I don't know if Rudy Gobert is a hero. Don't get me wrong. He apologized for his maybe facetious or goofy acts, but at the end of the day, people started taking it seriously because of his instance.
And the real hero really are the healthcare professionals, right? Those doctors and nurses and first responders and those on the front line of the battle. This is truly a battle, right? The hospital professionals, those inside of these hospitals are fighting on a day-to-day basis. And our medical experts and those working with the CDC that have given us all of the measures to take. I look at Dr. Anthony Fauci in the Donald Trump administration inside the White House right now. He's a hero. He's an American hero and a living legend, man. He's a guy we should be taking heed to with his advice. Complete gold right now. And we should be believing and following the protocol of. So I love that dude, and I love him every single time he comes out for a press briefing, and he is there, man, and speaking truth. And we need to hear that and take heed to him and his advice more and more moving forward, collectively as a nation too, guys.
I agree. Let me can I mention something about Fauci too? The credit I give this guy for being, I believe, 79 years old is that he's working around the clock, which for anybody of just that age is not an easy thing to do. Heck, in my 20s, that's not an easy thing to do, let alone at 79. That's number one. Number two, the guy's brilliant, right? Of course, he would not be in that position if he was not. But you just want to talk about somebody that's got the right demeanor and persona as well. And the thing that I've watched a lot of his interviews, his not press conferences, but when you see him go to these different news outlets and he has to answer questions and people are trying to turn him one way or another. And of course, everybody knows that the political landscape of our country is very, you're kind of on one side or another. And that's not the point of this. The point is he has to go and he's got to work with our president. And at the same time, now he's going to different news outlets and people are trying to pin him against or for and pin him on one side of the aisle. And he's done a real nice job of saying, hey, I'm just trying here to save lives. You're not going to put me in a position, no matter how hard you try, to pit me against the people, pit me against the president. The guy's battled a lot on top of trying to, solve a pandemic. So you just kind of got to give that guy some credit for really being able to work in an environment that is surrounded with a lot of criticism, with a lot of attention, intensity, and he's just done a phenomenal job.
He has stayed neutral. You're right. Phenomenal work out of Anthony Fauci. And he has stayed neutral throughout all of this, even with the divisive times of our nation. And like you said, Brendan, yourself perfectly, man, you're either on one side of the political aisle or the other. You can't be in unison with the other side if you think one way more than the other.
Sucks.
So it's
which
horrible,
sucks,
man.
by the way, because that's not how it should be. Never should be. Never should be. And if I ever run for office, you guys vote for me because I'm going to bring the nation back together. So remember that, Brendan and Aaron. But anyway, seriously. You better run for the right party, Vito. Otherwise, I can't.
We'll talk about that off the air, man. I'll make sure you vote for me. I'll make sure you. But real quick again, Anthony Fauci, he actually played basketball, too, at Manhattan's Regis High School. In 1958, there's a picture of him. I retweeted it myself on Twitter. Can follow me and make me sleep better at night by giving me a follow, too, at Vito Jerome, by the way. Vito, that is, and then Jerome, just like it sounds. But Anthony Fauci, man, a living legend once again, and props to him on what he has done throughout all of this madness. And moving on now, guys, quickly from that, back to the NBA conversation and to the Jazz and these other playoff teams and how there's been a halt in the season, and there might not be a remainder of the regular season in a postseason, obviously, at this point. But if the season were to resume, fellas, do you think they would come back with more of the regular season and play it out, or would they just go right to the postseason? Aaron, what do you think with that one?
I think it would be hard to justify going straight into the postseason. I think either way, whenever the NBA announces that it's coming back, there's going to have to be a 1 to 2 week pseudo training camp per se before games are actually able to begin once again, just because players are locked out of their training facilities right now. They're not practicing, like they could be. They're not running the offense or anything. So there's going to have to be a little bit of time for everyone to kind of get back into a game mode. I still think the NBA is going to try to finish the regular season. I don't know if at this point they could shorten it. I don't know how that would affect the schedule that's already been played out. But it would just be really hard for me to see, especially when you have teams like the Memphis Grizzlies and the New Orleans Pelicans and the Sacramento Kings battling for the final playoff spot or two in the Western Conference. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, there's obviously a lower tier of teams, the Pistons included, that aren't going to be fighting for playoff contention. But even in the East, teams are battling for spots. I mean, the Philadelphia 76ers, they haven't been super hot as of late. They were trying to figure some things out. They had fallen all the way down to the 6th seed. They were trying to climb back up, and obviously the season then stops. So there's teams that have a lot to play for still in the regular season. Some of their playoff lives depend on the remainder of the regular season. I mean, last night there was supposed to be a huge matchup between Ja Morant and Zion Williamson, the Memphis Grizzlies versus the New Orleans Pelicans, two teams battling for playoff position and a playoff spot in the Western Conference, and that game obviously didn't get to happen because of the NBA season being on hold. So I think there's got to be a way to play the regular season still, and if that pushes games back into, I mean, let's be honest, what if games are back in August and September, and that delays the start of the 2021 NBA season? It's something that I think you have to look at, because I think you're doing a disservice you would be doing a disservice by going straight into the playoffs whenever the league resumes.
You don't think it'd be a greater disservice to delay than the next season? I mean, to me, this is one of those, I think a lot of people, and you can look at this in a lot of aspects of life, this year's kind of messed up. This year might be a wash. And I'm not saying that in the sense of, well, season's over, don't resume it. But I don't think you can afford a season that goes into August or September and then delay the start of next season. I don't think you can do that.
I'll tell you why I disagree with that. There's been a lot of quiet talk about the NBA maybe shifting the start of their season back permanently to around December and letting football have its time of the year. The fall is football. The NBA has recently pushed earlier for the season to start, another week earlier in October, but there's an idea of pushing it back to December. And some people have said, why don't they start off the season with a bang on Christmas? And they could do the Christmas Day opening of the season. And that allows football to have its season. It allows the NBA to have its season. And those two don't clash. And this, in a way, could, obviously not the way you would want it to happen, but this maybe presents a way for the NBA to at least try that. And if they're able to start up games back in, let's say they're able to get games back up and going by June, then they're able to finish by hopefully the end of August. And then you have September, October, November to rest. It's a 3-month break. You can start training camp at the beginning of December, and you can begin the NBA season on December 25th.
Yeah, what does that do to college basketball, the college athletes and the high school athletes that are coming into the league? What about kids that have to decide whether they're going to return to college or they're going to go to the draft?
Well, I think
you've got to enroll for school.
I think you're going to look at the NBA draft, probably going on as scheduled. Whether, I mean, the playoffs will still, if the NBA is going to return this year, which I think it's anticipated that it will, I think you'll still be looking at the playoffs going on during the last week of June, when the NBA draft is always scheduled to be. How about though, Aaron, big picture, long term? Are you still going to do a draft in June when the season is still, if you start the season in December, that has the season go to August, does that, you still do your draft basically mid-season or like at the beginning of the playoffs? I think that, what, you've already said it. This is, it's been an interesting situation. It's been an interesting season. No one's, had to experience something like this before. It's unprecedented times, and I think that's what you might have to do at this point. As unfortunate as that is, if you're a front office.
Aaron, I'm not talking about this year. I'm saying as of a big picture, long-term, NBA decides to permanently start their season in December. Does that mean that they permanently decide to still do their draft while the season's going on? Maybe they do. It's not like that's, unheard of. I'm just saying, is that the direction that the league would go?
I mean, that
would allow your draft picks. Think about that. Now your draft picks get to travel with you for the postseason if you make it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different factors in play there that, do you allow? I mean, that's something that would have to be discussed. Are your draft picks eligible to play with you as soon as you draft them, or are they eligible to travel with you at least, or are they not on the team until the start of next year? The other thing that I think of is the NBA has become a year-round league. The NBA is just as popular in the summer as they are during their in-season, because you start off just a few weeks after the finals end with the NBA draft. Then you go in the summer league. and free agency, and then you have the schedule drop, and it really becomes a summer spectacular up until, mid-August, where then, once the schedule comes out, it quiets down a little bit for a month and a half, 2 months until not spring training, but training camp begins. So does the NBA care about having this quote unquote having their summer season, or it's just such an interesting situation that Adam Silver and the league are in, that they're going to have to decide upon, because this situation could potentially shift the entire NBA and could change it to where they start off in December. I legitimately think that's a possibility this year. I think there's a possibility that they play out the rest of the regular season, hopefully by the beginning of June, go through the playoffs until the end of August, and they're hoping to start up at some point in December. And I do like the idea of having the beginning of the NBA season on December 25th, Christmas.
Fellas, let's bring the conversation back to this, though. The season at stake right now, and what is at stake, which is restarting the season perhaps maybe not even until mid-July, let's say. So you're hoping that's the worst-case scenario. If you're going to resume the league, well, that is the worst case. But if it does happen where you don't start the league again and you finish out the regular season starting in mid-July, you're playing playoff games in August and September. Could the NBA feasibly survive at that point, drawing enough people to still care about the product, and even as the playoffs go on? What do you guys think about that? Brendan, how about you? What do you think?
I'll be honest. I don't think if you pick up the season and you play the remainder of the regular season and then decide to just go into, I don't know if that's healthy for your players, especially the ones that, they've got to get back into a certain condition physically to play, however many remaining games, especially those ones that don't make the playoffs. But even the ones that do, you've got to quickly get yourself into shape, and then all of a sudden you got to play postseason basketball. That's why I don't know how feasible it necessarily is. It may be more feasible to just, play the final 3 games of your regular season if, you're in the playoffs, but you get into a mixture with that. Is it worth it for non-playoff teams to even go out there and play? Right? I mean, yes.
You're right. I mean, would it be worth the risk, right? Yeah.
So there's that, right? Well, what about, teams that are out of the playoffs for within a game or two? Are they just out of luck? I don't know. Do you expand your playoffs for a 1-year thing? Do you say we're going to take the top 10 teams from each conference and we're going to get creative? I don't know. So there's just some things to consider. Could they do that? Yeah, they could. They could play the rest of the regular season and go forward. They've played most teams have played ballpark 65 games. They have anywhere from 15 to 20 games left on their schedule. Yeah, I don't know. To play 15 to 20 regular season games and then to still play a playoff slate on top of it, I think you're asking for a lot, especially just on the heels of this virus. That's a lot of time that, you're also banking on the virus not being present. I would say that most people recognize that, flu season really starts to peak late fall.
Well, yeah, starting back up in mid-July. Let's say you have to, or you end up finishing out the season, playing the remainder of it with the last 15 to 20 games, and then you get into the playoffs. So your playoffs are already well behind the 8 ball in comparison to when they normally start. And your season's just completely, not like it's ever been before with when you're playing. I mean, could the NBA once again adjust on the fly and make maybe a playoff rule, a playoff tiebreaker rule just to deal with the teams that are still fighting out those last playoff spots in the Western Conference? Because, Aaron, as you noted earlier, the West is still being played out for playoff spots, especially towards the bottom of that conference. And the East is pretty much settled 1 through 8. Now, fighting for specific playoff spots in your seeding, sure, that's up for grabs currently as we speak. But you might have to adjust on the fly here, fellas. And if you do, what do you do then? Or do you take more teams this year, right, in each respective conference? And as you said, Brendan, take 10 playoff teams per conference and roll with that so you get onto the playoffs before it's far too late.
Do you take less playoff teams? Do you play out the remainder of the regular season? Do you take the top 4? Do you take the top 4? And if 4 and 5 are tied, do they play a play-in game for the last spot? Do you do that?
maybe just one game, but there has to be some sort of a playoff tiebreaker instituted. And now it has to happen on the fly. So those teams that are left out, they're not going to be happy with Adam Silver in that decision. But at this point, these are extreme measures, right? So you have to adjust on the fly, be able and willing to. And if the NBA truly is, you're going to have to leave out some teams from the postseason that normally would be making it this season, perhaps. So there is that variable or scenario as well. You're right, Brendan, to consider. That, or you take more teams. But I mean, so many different variables to weigh and consider right now, Aaron, to say the least.
Yeah, it's an unprecedented situation. I think another thing that you could maybe do is you take those 10 teams and, the 8, 9, and 10, or well, that wouldn't really work, I guess, but there's just got to be a plan put in place to figure out what you're going to do if you have to cut the regular season short to begin the playoffs and kind of try to stay on schedule in any sort of the sense. But it's a situation that I wouldn't want to have to be in and be a person of power, because it's a very tough situation that no matter what decision you make, some team, some franchise is going to feel as if they got screwed in that situation. And then you have to deal with the uproar that comes with that. But Adam Silver has always been a very mindful decision maker. He makes more good decisions than he does bad. So, I think that I have faith in him to collectively with the rest of the league, powers to make the right decision. And we're going to get the NBA at some point, and it's going to be great. Obviously, what we care about is the playoffs. But if you cancel the rest of the NBA season or trim it down to the point where there's really nothing left to it, what does that do to the narrative that the NBA season doesn't really matter to begin with? And I think that's something else that the league powers have to be mindful of. And I think it's something that they will be mindful of, because Adam Silver is very in tune and responsive to what the people on social media are saying. I've seen that throughout his time as the commissioner. There are talking points that I've seen on social media that the NBA, kind of tends to and would answer the questions that come up in those discussions, and talking points on social media or, on websites, and media groups. The NBA is very responsive to that. They listen to the fans in that sense. So I think that that's something that they're weighing as well. Do they cancel the season and kind of strengthen the narrative that the NBA season really doesn't matter? Maybe that's not their intention because of, again, the situation that we're in, but it's something that they have to weigh.
So, guys, if the NBA season fails to resume, do we still have award winners? There is that variable as well to consider here. Who end up being the award winners, if there are even award winners? A Rookie of the Year, an MVP for the league over the course of this season. Do we get to that point where, hey, you wipe that out? You pretty much say, like you were kind of already saying, Aaron, yourself, that this season did not even count for anything at all. So there is that to consider as well. And now I think Adam Silver, and this decision obviously is above our pay grade as just podcast host here and just talking about all this. But I think he would implement where there are still award winners, but that's something else to consider. And then there's controversy surrounding that because some guys were hot, didn't have the rest of the season to play. And if they would have been able to play the rest of the season, the last 15 or 20 games, there's the argument to make that that guy would have won that award then over the other. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's something bigger that transcends sports right now, and it is the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, fellas. Let's just end on this, guys, for this week's edition of the pod. If the NBA season now were to resume and we have the playoffs, who is your finals favorite to win it all, to be more specific here? And Aaron, I'll go with you because you've been behaving. You've been behaving properly throughout the course of this podcast. So got to go to you first. Who is your NBA champion if the season does resume?
You look in the West, and there's 3-4 teams that could compete for an appearance to the finals. And in the East, I think there's 3 to 4 teams that could compete for a spot in the finals. And I think, if you look at the West, obviously you have the 2 teams in LA, in the Lakers and the Clippers. And then you look at the East, there's obviously Milwaukee, the powerhouse, Philadelphia. They're a team trying to figure it all out. And if they do, and you look at their top tier talent, this is giving Ben Simmons time to get healthy. This is giving Joel Embiid time to nurse his his injuries, and you still have Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson. That's a very good team over there. And obviously the Raptors, who have lost Kawhi Leonard, have still found a way to remain atop in the Eastern Conference. And then led by Jason Tatum, the Boston Celtics are another competitive team. If I'm predicting a finals right now, I'm going with the Bucks and I'm going with the Clippers. I think the Clippers will come out on top. I think that team just has so much depth. The star power of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. You added Reggie Jackson to your team in the buyout market, and he has played very well for them. You have a very, very good bench in Jackson and Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. And then again, Leonard and George in your starting five. You have a defensive tone center in Patrick Beverley. That's a team that I wouldn't want to have to face. And although the Bucks are phenomenal, they don't have the experience that the Clippers have. Paul George has played in big games. Kawhi Leonard has won multiple finals. He's a finals MVP. That is a team that is going to be very, very, very hard to stop. And look, I think the Bucks could present a real challenge. I think it's a series that could go 7 games. I think other teams could get into the finals. I would not count out the Lakers out west. I would not count out Toronto or Boston in the East, or the Sixers. I think the East is more open than the West in that stands. But if I had to pick, gun to the head, I'm picking the Clippers to win the finals. Kawhi Leonard is just an unnatural beast in the playoffs, and that team is very, very talented, very, very deep. I really think that they're the team to beat.
Bucks and Clips for Aaron Johnson. How about for Brennan Johnson? Brendan, what do you think for your finals matchup? If the season does end up resuming and the playoffs are played, who ends up making the finals this year?
Well, it's a great question, right? And it's funny. Aaron has picked what my preseason prediction was.
Wait, it's still your pick? Is that what you're saying,
Bucks
Brendan?
and Clippers was my preseason NBA Finals. No, and the thing is, from the East, I still think it's the Bucks. Do I think that Toronto and Boston could give a series? Yes, but I still think the Bucks are undoubtedly the best team in the East. Here's the thing about the West. Before this long break, I would have said Clippers undoubtedly. I would have stuck by my preseason prediction. But the Lakers, to me now, more than before, pose a real threat, with the reason being that the Lakers have not bought into this whole load management thing. And now LeBron has really gotten to rest before the postseason. That's going to go one of two ways. That either means LeBron's going to be rested and ready to go come time for the playoffs, assuming it happens, and he's going to go just total beast mode, or this rest is going to hurt LeBron because he's going to need more time to get back into that full mode, and maybe he didn't take the, quote, load management breaks because he didn't want to slow his body down as he was in rhythm. So I think that plays a big factor. And LeBron was playing really good basketball before this break, if you will, and suspension of play due to the pandemic. So it's something to keep an eye on. I think I agree with Aaron. I don't really like to go against my gut, because literally up until the break of season, I would have said Clippers, Bucks, Clippers win. Same page. I've been saying it all along. And a good friend of mine, we coach together. He's a big LeBron fan, so he is now a Lakers fan. As our LeBron fans tend to go. But anyways, we've had some friendly conversations, and I get a little worried that this break may have helped his Lakers. But I think if I'm with Aaron, I think I would go the same route. Bucks, Clips win. Between Paul George and Kawhi, that's just tough to beat. They average 116 points a game, which is just, it's incredible. The next closest, to them, the Bucks average 118, little different in the East, and then the Lakers average 114. I know we're looking at, minute differences here, but it's an offensive league. It's a star-powered league. The Bucks have the star power in the East. I think the Clippers have the better star power in the West, and that's hard, because you could say LeBron and AD are two of the best in the league, two of the top 5, but I think that combination of Paul George and Kawhi on the perimeter with Patrick Beverley running the point, those style that the Clippers play with, they can frustrate the Lakers. I think they can expose the Lakers. I think they can defend the Lakers. And I'm not sure if the Lakers, in the same respect, can defend the Clippers the same way.
Well, guys, I like the Clippers a ton, too, before the break. But now with this impromptu break, I kind of like the Lakers more and more. And you were kind of noting that yourself, Brendan, with your buddy. Is that Hunter Kara, by the way? DSL coaching legend now? Okay. So the one and only Hunter Kara. So, well, he's hunting, no pun intended, for a championship with the Lakers this season because LeBron is over there right now. And the Lakers could very well do it. And I come at you guys from this perspective. Wasn't Anthony Davis a bit hampered before the break? Wasn't he too? I think if we remember right, he had something going on physically. So now, what if he's healed up? LeBron with the load management, which, they wanted to manage his minutes all throughout the season. And he still managed to put up terrific numbers and play a majority of the games, I know, throughout the course of this season. So now with the extra rest for the two of them, that dynamic duo in LA, I think that might put them above the Clippers out west. Even though, once again, I love Kawhi, I love Paul George, I love the Clippers' depth. Even a sneaky move like the pickup of Reggie Jackson to add to their depth. But I think the Lakers now, even though I was a Clippers guy before too, but I'm more now going in that direction of the Lakers guys, and because of what I just noted.
You're right. Anthony Davis now has time to heal up, the elbow, the shoulder. LeBron James can rest. I mean, I know he was dealing with some groin issues before the season stopped. I mean, obviously, if you're giving the time for LeBron to rest, you're asking for trouble. And then, that's a team that with those two stars, they're going to present a problem. They're going to be an issue. And if you give them this time to rest, does that give them, a greater opportunity? Does that put them in a better position? So I certainly would be afraid of the Lakers, no doubt about it.
What do you think?
Real quick about the Clippers.
Yeah.
The Clippers have 11 guys on the roster that average 18 or more minutes per game. And what that shows to me is that they've got depth. They've got a variety of guys that could score the ball. The combination of Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Lou Williams as your top scoring threats to me is it's pretty remarkable. You go out, you added Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson. I think that just really, really, really improved on their second unit. And that's the thing. The Lakers' star power is going to be good, might even be better for having this break. But do the Lakers have the depth to maintain with the Clippers, right? Because LeBron and AD will not play 43, 44, 45 minutes a game, every game in the series, and the Lakers win the finals. Won't happen. So, with that being said, do the Lakers have, do they have the guys? Can Alex Caruso and, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Avery Bradley, Rajon Rondo, are those guys that can compete with and beat that second unit for the Clippers? I just don't know.
Well, guys, let's leave it with this now. Your MVP, you each get a minute to tell me why he is your MVP as well. Aaron, first with you on this one.
This is a very tough question because I think there's a lot of candidates this year, but how do you not pick Giannis again? Leading the top team in the Eastern Conference, putting up big numbers. He's come out and just absolutely dominated. You're getting a star performance every night. He walks on the floor for you. Giannis has been great. He's been great. And there's really, you can talk about other players. Absolutely. LeBron's been phenomenal. James Harden has been phenomenal. But night in and night out, Giannis walks out onto that court and is unable to be contained by every single team in the league. He's a big-time problem that can't be stopped. I think he's going to repeat this year as an MVP.
Yeah, Aaron, I have to agree. I want to give a shout-out, though, and it's something that some people are talking more about than others. I think a lot of people are talking about LeBron and him being the MVP. And I'm not gonna lie, if LeBron won it, I would not be upset about it. I've seen people say LeBron shouldn't even be in the conversation. I've had others say, LeBron's the MVP. So he's kind of just hot or cold, but I think that's LeBron just as a whole. The guy I want to give a mention to, and I think should actually be considered most valuable player, right, should really refer to most valuable player to your team and what you're able to do to help your team achieve, the highest status. His team is not first place in the league, but he's done something that I don't think a lot of people expected. And the guy I'm going to give you is Chris Paul. The Oklahoma City Thunder are the 5th seed in the Western Conference, and that's 100% because of the effect of Chris Paul going in there and making a huge difference, playing 32 minutes nearly a night, averaging 17 points, nearly 7 assists, 1.6 steals. He's just a guy that has been real, real good, and a guy that's been forgotten about is, well, he kind of just got sent to OKC as, well, see ya. We're going to improve our roster and see ya. And the whole reports at first were Chris Paul wants out. He doesn't want to be in OKC. And he's gone out, in my opinion, had an MVP caliber year for the way that he's taken a young roster. You look at it, really the only other guy with true playoff experience would be Steven Adams. He's playing with Danilo Gallinari. He's playing with rookie Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And a lot of just younger pieces. It's pretty impressive what they've been able to pull off. MVP is going to be Giannis, and I would agree, but I had to give that mention to Chris Paul that, Giannis is the most valuable player for his team because the Bucks are good, but they're nowhere near as good if Giannis is not on that team. But Chris Paul might be second in terms of just guys that have really look what he's done for that organization in Oklahoma City and those young guys that are in OKC, especially Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's incredible.
Brendan, really quick, piggybacking off of your point about CP3, the man that I love to call CP3 and affectionately known as CP3, I think even with the younger crowd nowadays,
yes,
he was brought in as a veteran piece for the roster and a guy that they were going to look to move. You said it already kind of about Chris Paul, how he wanted out, and I think the organization as a whole wanted to get rid of him as well and flip him for draft assets. They did it. They hung on to him. And look at their record. You spoke about it kind of already, but they're tied in the win-loss column with the Rockets in the West at 40-24. Incredible what CP3 and the effect he has had on the Thunder up to this point. And now with the halt, though, here's another factor to consider really quick. Would CP3 even be as good coming back after this long hiatus for the NBA? You know what? Not a lot of people talk about it because not a lot of people talk about CP3 anymore. But with the season that he has had before the break, guys, I think you have to consider that factor as well. That if the season were to resume at this point, would Chris Paul even be as crisp and as sharp? And I know it's the case with many other NBA players as well, fellas.
It's a good point, Aaron. I'll let you kind of build on that because obviously I gave my little 2 cents on the coming back from this break earlier. I'll just put it this way. I think it's going to be one or two ways. Either some of these guys are going to respond really well, or it's going to really negatively affect them. And that's hard for me to say. I would just be kind of blowing smoke if I said one way or another because I don't really know. But I can't imagine it would be easy. I'll put it that way. I can't imagine if you're truly kind of quarantined in your home. A lot of these guys have home setups where they have indoor gyms and ability to work out in some capacity, but not like you would be if you were in your normal regimen. You're not on your same schedule. You're not on your in-season schedule. And even if you're working out, you haven't run practice or game reps in weeks. It's going to affect some people really negatively. It might help some just from being fresh. It's really tough to say, but some of these older veterans in the league, I just have to think it's going to be tougher.
Well, or they're going to be more well-equipped to handle all of this because they are veterans, right? They are guys that have the savvy of a long tenure to this point in the NBA. So maybe it actually doesn't hinder them as much as it does the younger guys who are in their first, second, or third year in the league. Who knows? We can't diagnose it. We're no scientists when it comes to this or experts, but we do love talking hoops, guys. And I'll leave it with that. And I'm going to name my MVP from this conversation today. Easily Aaron Johnson. BJ, Brennan Johnson, I don't know what the heck you were doing for more than half of this week's episode of Sundays of Dominic and Vito.
Thank you. look, I come out and try to perform every time I come on the mic and do my job the best way that I possibly can. And I appreciate the opportunity that Vito has given me to come out and do that here today. I want to always come onto the show and be prepared, and I think I was. And I'd like to, thank my computer. I'd like to thank the Wi-Fi. I'd like to thank the microphone for all being great teammates and assisting me in making this possible. I hope Brendan is able to rebound from this and do a better job next time. He's got a week or so or a few days or so until the next podcast that he's on. So during that time, he's able to work harder, troubleshoot the Wi-Fi, troubleshoot the microphone issues, whatever it was, and be better prepared for the next time.
Brendan, really quick, now you have the chance, the platform here to answer. You're in the post-game presser pretty much right now. What do you have to say about your subpar performance?
What I have to say is, the AirPods really, they battled hard today, but they struggled. We were like a reliever out of the pen, typically pretty good, but every once in a while you get roughed up. It's almost like when you've had 41 save opportunities and the first 40 were no problem, but the 41st was a problem, and I kind of feel like that's where we're at today. We had some connection issues, but we continue to fight back. We continue to fight through. We finished it out, right? We didn't get pulled. We finished it out, and that's what I'm proud of. We didn't get the result we totally wanted today, but we competed. We completed the game, and at the end of the day, he can ask us for a finishing effort. That's what we did, and we'll reevaluate, we'll retool, we'll investigate the issues, and we'll get better. There's no doubt, but I'm just proud of these pods to recover and maintain and to stick through the remainder of the podcast.
Aaron, was that a long enough answer for you? Because it definitely was for me.
A lot of talk, a lot of just whatever to fill airtime, and maybe that's what we should expect from Brennan. Maybe he's past his podcasting prime.
Definitely really good at filling airtime. He just did that for me to end this week's episode of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. And guys, it's been fun, always is, and stay safe out there as well. We'll talk again soon. All right?
Sounds good. Thank you,
Vito.
Thank you.